everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you guys our very first monthly wrap up for this year, 2020, my January wrap up. Now, I feel like January was pretty long. I feel like we've gone through a lot and then we finally made it today. I'm filming this on the 1st of February, so I feel like for the next few months it's gonna go really fast. But this January, this month, has just been, there's a lot that happened this month, and I don't know. It just felt like a really long month compared to the past few months we've had previous year. Anyway, for this month, I actually read quite a bit of books. I read a total of 9 books. And a good combination of fantasy, contemporary, and a magical realism, as well as audiobooks and physical copies of books. And so, without further ado, let's get started in this wrap up. Okay, so as usual, I will be going through like this order that I read these books for the most part. Let's get started with the first book that I finished for this year, and that is Red, White, and Your Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This has been hyped up in BookTube for the last year. Ever since this came out, this has been loved and hyped up by so many people. We follow Alix and Henry. Alix is the son of the first female president of the United States of America, and Henry is the second in line to the throne in England. So it tells their story, how they're both perceived as rivals by the media. They haven't really met, and they don't really know each other, but they've always been pitted against each other. And so during one of the events hosted by the royal family, where Alix attended, they got into an accident. There was a cake toppling over incident involved, and it was mainly between the two of them. Well, it is between the two of them. And so both sides decide to have them try to play nice, like with each other, especially in public, so that they will be stopped getting pitted against each other, and to just kind of publicize the good relationship between the United States of America and the monarchy, or / the UK. So it's, well, US-British relations. And so it's their story, how they turn from enemies, sort of enemies, to acquaintances, to friends, and to maybe more. There is gay bisexual representation because we are following a romance between Alix and Henry as well. I love this book. I rate this a 5 out of 5 stars, 4.75 stars. It's just so cute, so sweet, sexy. It is very sexy. And it also is very emotional. We really learn a lot about Alix and Henry and how their childhood, their not so normal childhood, has affected them throughout the years, and how they've changed, and the different experiences that they've had with other people. And there's a lot of discussion of trust and betrayal and secrets, and being aware of how people will perceive you, as well as what you can and can't do normally, and how it hinders you from just doing what you love to do and want to do. And so I really loved it, and I really enjoyed the exchange between Alix and Henry in terms of their texts and emails and calls, and just how they progress, how their relationship progresses throughout the story. It's very heartwarming, because we're not just dealing about what they're going through, but also what their family is going through, and their families, and their friends, the friends that they've found, as well as the enemies they've made as they grew up, and with the politics of their lives. It's very interesting to see. Although it is a fictional retelling, and it's pretty much kind of fan fiction-y type of story, it's still very believable in that there are definitely dark moments in here. It wasn't afraid to get really darkly emotional, if you get what I'm trying to say. I love how it really shows you how messy and frustrating life can be, and relationships can be, and there's just a lot of things, the complexities of different relationships, and sometimes there's a lot of things that are hidden, or like certain important things that are hidden from other people, and even though they care about you a lot, there's still a lot of things that they're pulling back from in case they get hurt. And it's really such a sweet and lovable story, and I definitely love the relationship between Alix and and his parents, and the friends that he's made, and how Henry joins their family as well. It's just nice. It's a lovely story. I definitely see why people love this book so much. It's pretty long, actually. It says like 400 pages, and I read, I want to say, about 2 hours of this book in audiobook form. So that's the first book that I read. A really great start to the year. I really loved reading that book. Now the next book that I finished, I started in December. It took a while for me to finish, and I'm talking about the 10,000 Doors of January by Alix E. Harrow. I got this off Book of the Month. Now, the reason why I got this off Book of the Month is because it reminds me a lot, the premise reminds me a lot of the Hayward series by Shannon McGuire. In here, we're talking about this, we're following January, who opens or discovers doors to different worlds and different places, and we just follow her as she grows up and rediscovers the world, because she grows up as a ward of a wealthy businessman, Mr. Locke, and her father is employed by this Mr. Locke and goes pretty much around the world to acquire very rare, very peculiar treasures around the world for Mr. Locke, like his father does that for him. And so it's her like messy as well as really tragic type of relationship with Mr. Locke and as well as her father, and she grows up in this world where she's shielded from the outside world, but at the same time she isn't really accepted in the world that she lives in because she's colored. She is not white, and her father is not white as well. It's a fantasy historical fiction type of book. This is set, I want to say, in 20s, maybe 30s or the 10s. We follow her story as well as read a book that she discovers about the different doors and, you know, teleportation / transportation to different worlds. And we follow her and her growth as she discovers the world around her and discovers these are the worlds that is hidden in the world that we live in now, and her history, her father's history, and you know, the society, the secret society that Mr. Locke is part of, and her father was kind of a members-ish of. So we follow that and read the book along with her, and we discover these worlds and sort of the rules and how they come to, and just what it means to find these doors and to discover these worlds, and what you know, kind of cultures and magic are in these different worlds. And so it's very interesting. It took me a while to finish again because this is a pretty dense book. This has 360 pages, but it's very dense, as I said. There's a lot going on. Like, you have letters, you're reading the book. It's like there's a book within a book here. You have like annotations, endnotes, footnotes on here as well. So it took me a while to finish. It is very interesting. I didn't find it to be dull or boring, but it's definitely a lot more of a calm kind of story. It's not, although it is talking about, you know, adventure and going to different places, it is still, especially in the first half of the book, or maybe even 3/4 of the book, it's very mellow. You're just kind of like following January and her world, and she's locked in this house pretty much, and she doesn't really go out a lot, and so we don't really, you know, experience a lot from her perspective because we are following her. But still, it was very complex in terms of who she was, and she discovers her complexities as well, and I really enjoy that. I enjoy the changing perspectives. Although we are following January stories, we're also following the different characters, and it's kind of like they told someone their story, and so it's kind of a combination of their perspective and another person's way of storytelling, and so it's very interesting, and I really enjoyed following her story again. So I rated this a 4.5 stars. Now the third book that I read for this month is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. Now this has been pretty hyped up in booktube as well for the past year. No, it wasn't. This was part of an Owl Crate. Well, this one I borrowed from the library, but I knew Owl Crate did a feature of this book. Anyway, we are following the story of Elizabeth. She works as a librarian, but here the books in her libraries are like actual beings. Like, they have emotions, they can feel, they can talk. There are magical grimoires, that's what they're called. And they can be used as tools of sorcery and magic. And there are different levels for each of the books. There's level 1 to level 10. Level 1s to, I want to say 3 or 4 are the ones that, you know, all like ordinary people can have, where although they are alive, they don't really talk, they can't cause or really wreak havoc, because there are some books that can like eat stuff. It's really interesting. And these grimoires can be transformed into monsters, like actual monsters, when they're treated with sorcery and magic. So she hopes to become a warden who is in charge of protecting the kingdom and the power. But there's a sabotage that happens in the library. The library's most dangerous grimoires, the different libraries' most dangerous grimoires, are being released and turned into monsters. And she gets embroiled into this whole like sabotage thing that's happening, and she gets torn from her home, and she goes to the capital, and one of her sworn enemies, a sorcerer, which is Nathaniel, they have to team up together to solve this sabotage that's been happening, because it's not only just affecting libraries, but it's also affecting, you know, the normal citizens, and there's chaos happening, and people are getting killed and getting hurt, and people are dying. So they have to work together to solve whatever it is that's happening. This I really enjoyed reading. I rated this at 4 stars. I wouldn't say it was very epic or very fun. I mean, very epic in terms that I would say it's like a 5-star read. This is the fantasy book. I really liked the beginning. Like, it's not anything new or different, but it was very interesting to see, you know, how books can be alive and manifested. It was really fun to read that. The male love interest is interesting. He's not anything refreshing or new. He's a typical angsty, broody, sarcastic, sort of mean type, which is fine. I don't find that he is actually problematic. He did not treat Elizabeth as weak physically or emotionally, so I really like that. It was fun. It was very action filled. I enjoyed the character, our main character Elizabeth. She is a very like strong character. Nothing special. Still, you know, we've had a lot of special, one of a kind character, like female protagonists all over YA fantasy especially. So I don't find her to be anything like, oh, she's a special snowflake kind of type, but she is sort of portrayed as that. She is quite different from other people, but we weren't really like forced to, I don't know, to believe it and to believe in her. Like, we weren't like it's not put in her face that she's so different. It's not like mentioned all the time. It wasn't even mentioned up until around the end, when they kind of realized, like, you know, why like certain things are not happening to her and it's happening to other people. Anyway, again, I really enjoyed this book. It was fun. Action filled. Nothing that is too special. The next book that I read is another very hyped up book. I think this was only recently released. This is The Flatsahre by Beth. I rated this a 4 out of 5 stars. This was cute and this was fun, and I really enjoyed our 2 main characters and how they fell in love, and how their personal struggles and their personal lives kind of intertwine, and you know, you see how their personal lives come through to who they are as people and how they interact and intertwine. As I said, I really enjoyed this. It's very sexy as well. It is adult. I liked it. This is another book that I read partially in audio form, as well as Sorcery of Thorns, mostly in physical. I think this was like 50-50 audiobook, 50% physical. I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed our 2 main characters, and you can definitely see the difference in their like perspective, because it's dual perspective. So we're following Leon and Tiffy in this series. So every chapter, sometimes it's Tiffy and the next one is like Leon, and you can definitely tell which one is Tiff and which one's Leon. And I love how Leon's type of storytelling changes throughout the story, because she is more of a like very short, incomplete sentences, like, phone rings as Dr. Patel is prescribing meds for Holly, little girl with leukemia. Bad timing, very bad timing. Dr. Patel not happy at interruption and makes her feelings clear. Seems to have forgotten that I too, as a night nurse, should have gone home at 8 a.m. and yet I'm still here dealing with ill people and graduate consultants like Dr. Patel. So they're very incomplete sentences, but I like how, as the story goes on, even though he still has like a lot of very incomplete sentences and like not really sentences, it's gotten a lot more like full, and I feel like that is mirroring the changes that he experienced throughout the story as he gets to know Tiffy and goes into her world and kind of comes out of the kind of rut that he's in. I really like the story. Again, this has really dark themes as well, and it's a little bit messed up in that the abuse here, there is abuse, is more emotional, and so it's not straightforward as physical, and sometimes a lot of people are not aware that they're being emotionally abused, and even the people around them sometimes don't realize, oh, that's emotional abuse. So very hard to read about, but it is happening and it's real. And so to experience that and to get to know our characters and how they react and how they go and solve these problems, it's very heartwarming, and that there's like genuine care for their friends, but at the same time they're human beings, they're imperfect, and so even though they want to help, sometimes the help that they give isn't the best, or it might be like not, you know, more recommended parts, but it always comes from a good place. And none of the friends are being very pushy or being very like, this is not right, you should listen. So I really enjoy that, and I really enjoyed the friendship between Tiffy and her two friends, and how they kind of adopt Leon as well, and his brother. I really love the relationship he has with his brother. And so yeah, the relationship between the characters in this book is just, I feel like, the best thing about this book. Although, you know, our main characters are like very interesting and I really love them, and you know how they fell in love, and their story is also like, I love it. But I feel like the thing that I love the most about this book is the relationship between, you know, Tiffy and the people around them, and how they take care of other people, and how they just are like a family. So another really great read. All right, so for the next three books, are part of a quartet. The fourth book is coming out this month. Hopefully I will be able to read it this month. I don't know, we'll see. I'm talking about the Diviner series by Libba Bray. Now this is also one of their book series that's been hyped up in BookTube for quite a while now, and a lot of people really love it. And I have been wanting to read this series for a while now, but I'm a binge reader, so I prefer reading my series one after the other rather than waiting a year, 2 years for me to read the next one, because I tend to forget how things, or what happens in those things. So the first book is The Diviners, the second book is Lair of Dreams, and the third book is Before the Devil Breaks You, and the fourth book is King of Crows. Again, it's coming out this month actually. And we here are following the story of the Diviners. The Diviners are young adult children. This is a YA, historical, paranormal fantasy. This is set in the 20s. We are following the kids about 17 years old or so that are diviners. They have special powers, they have special abilities, and pretty much we're following them. In this first book, we start with following Evangeline O'Neill's story. She is from Ohio, I believe, and she gets sent to New York to live with her uncle Will, because she has been very rebellious, you know how some teenagers can get. And so she gets sent to live with her uncle Will, who runs this what is it called? It's a museum. They call it the Creepy Crawly Museum of the Creepy Crawlies, where it's pretty much like witchcraft and paranormal kind of museum. And so she gets to live there with her uncle, and she realizes that she has always known for a while now that she can divine things, or she's able to touch an object and see who owns it, or what specific memories a certain person has with that object. And so she goes to live with her uncle, and in New York there are a series of murders that have been happening, and it's very brutal, very gory, and there is a sort of cultish sort of aspect to these killings. That's why Will, her uncle, was kind of hired as a consultant to see what these kind of brands and, you know, stuff means. And so she gets embroiled in the murders, obviously, and just follow her, and as she discovers more of her powers and of, you know, where her powers come from. And as the story progresses, we learn more about the other kids who have the same powers. Well, not the same powers, but that have the same that also have special abilities like her. And throughout the book, as the book goes on, we follow all these kids, and some of them don't really have like special powers or like, you know, abilities. I really loved how their friendship grows and changes, and their relationship with each other gets more and more complex. And I love how Libba Bray is not afraid to explore the complexities of, you know, teenagers as well as adults, and how the relationship between teenagers, adults, and supervisory adults, and, you know, the people, and how the media as well, how they interact, and, you know, they kind of affect each other. I really enjoy that. And again, Libba Bray is not afraid to be very dark and very gory with her details. this gets very creepy as the story goes on. This is not a book that you want to read before you go to bed. Well, depending on if you're, you get spooked easily. I can read this I read this right before I go to bed. I'm fine with it. But this can get like really, like, it's paranormal, but it's not that it's, there's ghosts and spirits and stuff. You actually like interact with these ghosts and they're not all kind. And they're like, ooh, it's very creepy. It's very scary. It's very dark. I really liked it. I really love it. I already missed reading about the gang and I can't wait for the last book because I really enjoyed reading about our different characters and I want to see where we go from the third book because there's a lot of things that happen in the third book. By the way, the stakes are getting higher as we get closer and closer to the end, and we learn more about the complexities of where their powers come from and what their powers mean, and the negativity, the negative aspect of what their powers can bring. And so I'm very excited to read what's gonna happen next because we have definitely gone through a lot, especially on the third book. As I said, there's one after the other that happened that is just heartbreaking, and it's just setting the stage for what's gonna happen in the next book because now it's a lot more personal. There is a lot at stake and people are dying. That's not really a spoiler, but there are people dying. Okay, there are murders here in this first book and it just gets closer and closer and closer and much more personal to our main character. So I cannot wait to read the fourth book. I hope I will be able to read it this month. I think I rated all of these 4 stars because although I really enjoyed this 4.5, 4 stars, I really enjoyed all of these books. I wouldn't say they're like 5 stars, but I really enjoyed a lot more of the characters and their relationship with each other. As I just feel like I'm growing out of my YA stages, especially like early YA type of books. I feel like that's just on me. Personally, I'm looking for a lot more complexities because even though these got really like dark and gory, complex, we're following like teenagers and I feel like I'm just at this point in my life I'm just like I don't really understand that anymore. Anyway, that is on me. The last 2 books that I read are all completely in audiobook form. The first one that I finished is Once Upon a Dream by Liz Braswell. Now I have been reading the Twisted Tales series, so I've read most of it now. I'm just waiting for A Whole New World, which is actually I think the first book in the whole Twisted Tales series, which is a series of fairy tale retellings published by Disney Hyperion, I think, or like Disney book groups. Disney, pretty much. And so I really personally just really enjoy reading retellings and also watching retellings of classic fairy tales. So I really was interested in reading this book and I have enjoyed most of the books. This book I rated a 3.5 stars. I loved how dark it is and how much more complex it got and how the author really just explored the storyline and where the story could go, and I don't know, I just really enjoyed it. So this one, Once Upon a Dream, it was fun and I definitely loved like the world within a world within a world aspect of it, and that whatever it is that our characters experience, like Aurora, Philip, and Maleficent, what they experience might not be like completely what it is, or like it might not be the real world, and I love how we explore more of Aurora and Philip and their backgrounds, and they're not just people who met each other in the forest and fell in love. Well, they are sort of, but we explore more of that and we discover a lot more of how their relationship led to that meeting in the forest and how and why they fell in love instantly. First, not really. But yeah, we just explore more about the different characters that we read. They're not just, like the fairies are not just the fairies. Aurora is not just a pretty princess who falls under a spell. Maleficent is not just a wicked witch who got slighted by one thing. Well, she still was. But, we discover a lot more from them and there's a lot more complexities in them. That's why I really love retellings, because the classic fairy tales are just like, they're very surface level. They don't really explore a lot of things. But of course, they're, fairy tales for kids, so you don't really get a lot from them, but I loved how dark and deep and compelling the different retellings have gotten us. Well, I have written from this book. Again, this is a 3 stars, a really fun middle. Well, I think it's YA. Yeah, it is YA because it's pretty dark. I don't think middle grade is gonna be the level for it, but I would have, enjoyed reading this when I was still in middle grade, definitely. So, I really enjoyed that book. The last book that I read is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. Now, this is a book that I've been kind of going back and forth into wanting to read or not wanting to read. The first time that I heard about this, and honestly just constantly from Regan from Peru's Project, and I think I heard Olive from a book Olive talk about this as well. Here we're following the story of Lois Clary. She is a programmer in this General Dexterity, like a company who focuses on arms. And you know what, they're making robotic arms, and so these arms have different like kind of functions, and so she's working as a programmer there, and she moves from a small town, I believe, and into San Francisco, and you know, it's a lot more techy, it's a lot more busy, things are a lot more expensive, and they're smaller, and you know, she gets a lot of anxiety, and she's just generally unhappy with her situation so far. And so one day she discovers this restaurant run by two brothers from a different country, from a European country, I believe. It wasn't really like specified, and that's the reason why this book is kind of vague. It is magical realism, so there are things that are pretty much unexplained here that you can't really expect an explanation from. It's magical realism, and so I mean, I really enjoyed it. So these two brothers, they run a restaurant, and one day she orders food from there, and it kind of changes like pretty much her whole like situation, and now she's enjoying this great food. One part of it is like the super spicy soup, and the one part is the sandwich, and she's been enjoying it for the last few weeks. But one day these brothers tell her that they need to go back to their country because there were visa issues, and she was like, what? You changed my life here. I'm actually getting happier now, because before that she has been like, I think she had like indigestion or like irritable bowel syndrome brought on by the anxiety from her work and just her general living situation, which is not very good. So she was actually given this like slurry, which is like a smoothie, but it has like all the nutritional things that you need. You just have to drink it, and so it helped her. But at the same time, you know, it's not filling. It's not food for the soul type of food, you know. So when she discovers this restaurant, and she's been loving it, and when they have to go back and leave, she's like devastated. But the brothers leave her the recipe for the sourdough, and she started baking bread, and she doesn't really, you know how sourdoughs, they get like etched out or crafted out with like different designs. The first time she does it, she doesn't do it, and it comes out having faces on it. So she keeps baking the sourdough breads, and they have faces on them, and they gave her this starter for the sourdough that responds to this music that they play, which is from their own like culture, and it's very interesting because again, it is magical realism. So it's like this dough is, well, it is alive because it has like bacteria in it, but it's like actually alive. Like it feels emotion, it thinks, like it responds to the care that you get, that Lois gives it, and as well as like the music that she plays. And so she gets hired by their company chef to give her like at the start like 6 loaves of bread every week, and they go from there. Then eventually she quits her company and tries to join this, well, she joins this startup farm market kind of situation thing, and that's where things happen, and she discovers more about herself and her ambitions and her just her personality and what she likes and dislikes and her interests and just the personality that she has. But she also discovers more about the sourdough. So she discovers more about the sourdough bread starter and the sourdoughs, and what it means to be part of a community. And I love like the community that she eventually becomes a part of. Like there's community, and there's family and camaraderie, and although she lives in this very different kind of world from where she came from, she discovers, you know, more like really significant relationships from these other people that she never really expected to have. Like she joins this Lois chapter, like Lois group, where a group of women whose names are Lois's kind of gather each week or so, just kind of hang out. That was really funny, and that was really fun and interesting to see as well, because these are Lois's of different like backgrounds and different ages, and so to learn from them as well and to hear from them was very beneficial for her. And then she joins these other people who are part of this startup kind of farmers market thing, where they all have their own personal circles. They all want to be part of something big and, you know, make a name for themselves, and they all have these interests that they love and they want to share it to other people. And as part of her, she's like a programmer, but she also bakes good sourdough bread. And so I really loved just the community that she forms with these other groups of people, and so I really enjoyed reading Sourdough. I wouldn't say it's not as epic as I thought it was, or I expected it to be. I rated this more of a 3.5 stars. It was really enjoyable to listen to. I definitely want to kind of browse, kind of just go through a physical copy of the book. I definitely want to learn if like this was based on like actual, like the culture of the two brothers are actually based on a certain type of thing, and now I am very interested in making. Like I want to try doing it. Like it's very interesting, like starters, like sourdough bread starters. That's very interesting. Like how does that work? I've always wanted to bake, but I've never really done it like from scratch. I've baked like brownies from boxes and cakes from boxes, but never like from scratch really. So I think that's like one thing that that really kind of made me enjoy this book and make me want to pick up this book as well. Those are all the 9 books that I read for this month. Did I talk about all of them? 1? Oh, 10! I read 10 books. I read 10 books this month. Oh my god, I'm so proud of myself. Hopefully this kind of goes on as the, months go by. I'm not really expecting to be reading 10 books a month because that will be a lot. I feel like I'm gonna go back to my usual 6 to 8 kind of books every month. But so far, a really great start for this year. Honestly, if not for the audiobooks and the like reading the books partially in audiobook form, I probably would not have read as much books as I did for this month. I feel like having that audiobook kind of format, I'm getting used to reading it. I still find myself sometimes kind of spacing out because I'll be like listening to it and be like scrolling through Instagram. Sometimes I'm too focused on doing my Instagram and kind of just like, oh, wait, I'm listening to a story, I need to pay attention. And sometimes I have to go back, sometimes just skip it because, sometimes I only space out for a little bit. Not enough for me to miss a lot. But still, I'm still working on kind of balancing my attention between 2 things when I'm listening to an audiobook. But again, there are a lot of things that I do throughout the day that, it's pretty mindless, or it's partly mindless, where I can sneak in audiobook form. So I've been getting like a lot of views in my library. I've also paid for Script, but I feel like I'm gonna unsubscribe because there are limitations, which is so weird. Like you only read 2 audiobooks a month, and after that, even if the title is available in Script, you can't like borrow it because you've reached your limit, which is frustrating because why? I'm paying for these services. I should be able to borrow it, So I've also kind of did a trial with Libra of but still it requires you to buy a book. Which, no, I prefer to, borrow audiobooks because audiobooks I know for sure I'm not really going to be rereading or like listening to for the most part. So I'm going to be unsubscribing to those 2 things. In any case, again, my library has been really great with my audiobooks, and sometimes even if it says, oh, it's 2 weeks before I borrow it, sometimes it only takes like a week and then it's available. So for the most part, I've been just using my library and I've been using it a lot. So audiobooks I think are gonna help me a lot for this year to help me kind of read because it motivates me to pick up like the actual physical book. So but at the same time, when I don't feel like reading the physical book, I can just listen to the story and do something else, maybe like do the laundry or like edit like a short video or something, or like do my makeup or something that's pretty mindless. So yeah, that is it for this wrap up. I read 10 books this month. I'm so proud of myself. So I hope you guys enjoyed this wrap up. Tell me what you guys think about the books that I've read, if you guys have read it, and if you are planning to read them as well. If you read it, what do you guys think of my opinions? If you guys agree or disagree. If you think I missed to discuss something, please comment down below and let's have a discussion. If you're planning on reading some of these books, tell me what you guys are excited about. If I made you not read them or made you want to read them even more. Anyway, that is it for this video. Again, thank you so much for watching. You can check out some of my other videos right here, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.